Hi, I'm Jennifer of Celtic Knot Crochet, and today in this video I'll be showing you how to make this center square of the Celtic Knot Baby Blanket. The Celtic Knot Baby Blanket is a special project that I worked on with my friend Bonnie Barker of Bonnie Bay Crochet. We put our heads together and designed this one-of-a-kind and unique baby blanket that you can make in all kinds of color varieties. In this video, I'll be showing you how to create this Celtic knot by crocheting some cords. Then I'll show you how to weave them together, and then I'll show you how to add stitches around the outside edge. Next, you'll want to check out Bonnie's video because she'll show you how to add all these beautiful cabled stitches to frame the knot. You'll need to purchase this pattern in order to get a diagram to help you weave the Celtic knot and to give you all the details for the stitches and the supplies. If you're new to my YouTube channel, welcome, and make sure you click to subscribe, and don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And if you know somebody else who would be interested in this project, make sure to click share so they can watch it too. You can purchase the pattern for this project in my Etsy shop, CelticKnotCrochet.com. It'll include a diagram to help you weave the Celtic knots, a list of stitch definitions, list of supplies, and all the details you need to make a blanket like this one. Bonnie and I enjoyed working together, and we hope you enjoy making this project. Let's get started. Let's go over the supplies that you'll need for the Celtic Knot Baby Blanket. For starters, I used a size F or 3.75 millimeter crochet hook for the Celtic knot section of this project. I wanted everything in the Celtic knot to be nice and tight and clean. So I found that this hook worked best with this yarn. The yarn I picked is Paint Box Yarn's Simply DK, and I like these colors together. It looks really nice when you make a Celtic knot to have some contrasting colors to help you see the pattern of the knot the best. So this here is color number 143, and it's called Raspberry Pink, and this light pink here is color number 150 and is called Bubblegum Pink. And then I also used this one here that I wound into a ball so it was easier to work with. This is number 104 and it's called Stormy Grey. Now at the time of making this video, these yarns are out of stock, but I will list in the description below an alternative yarn that you can purchase that works just as well as these. So make sure to check the description below for a list of all the supplies needed in this project for the Celtic knot center and then for the stitches around the Celtic knot that are covered by Bonnie in her video. And for this center section, you'll also want some stitch markers, and it really helps if you have 4 of one color and 2 of another from your stash. I decided to wind off my skeins of yarn because I was having a hard time finding the center pull, and this just helps the project to work up quicker without having to wrestle with my yarn. When you decide which colors you would like to use for your Celtic knot in the center, I decided to choose the lighter pink with this dark pink edging. But for demonstration purposes, I'm actually going to make this project and the cords with this darker color first. And you'll want to put your slip knot on your hook. And we're going to make cord A. And we're going to make 2 of these, and you want to chain 61. Now remember, you can chain, let's say 20, and mark it with a stitch marker to help you keep track of how many you've done. And then you can chain 20 again and mark the 20th one. And this way, if you get interrupted, you don't have to start over, you don't have to try to count your chains. I just know that I have 40 so far, 20, 20, and then I'll do another 20. And then I need 61, so I'll just add one more. Now for our cords, we're going to be working in the back bar of the chain. So this is the front of the chain that looks like a braid, and if we turn the chain over, you can see all these bumps here. And we're going to be working into those bumps along the back side of the chain. You could see them here. And this will give us a really nice looking cord. So we're going to skip our first chain and we're going to work into that back bar of the next chain, and we're going to work a single crochet. And then we're going to do that 7 more times. So put your hook into that back bar, yarn over, pull through the stitch, then yarn over, pull through 2. So far you should have something that looks like this. Now we're going to start adding some increases, which means we're going to be putting 2 stitches in one, and we're going to use our stitch markers to help us keep track of where everything is. So this next stitch, I'm going to put 2 single crochets in here. And I'm going to mark the first one with a stitch marker. So I make that first single crochet in the next stitch, mark it with a stitch marker, and now I'm going to go back into that same stitch and do another single crochet. And this is going to help my cord bend. Next, I'm going to single crochet in the next 2 chains. 1, 2, and now I'm going to work 3 stitches into this next one. I'm going to work a single crochet, chain 1, and I'm going to mark it with my different colored stitch marker. And then I'm going to put a single crochet back in that same chain. And this starts creating one of the points of my cords. Now I'm going to put a single crochet in the next 2, 1 in that one, 1 in the next, and now I'm going to work 2 single crochets in the next one. 1, go right back in that same stitch, and I'm going to mark it with a stitch marker back to the blue one. So far you should have something that looks like this. You could see how my cord is already starting to bend and has a point. And now I'm going to work along the remaining chain to create the same thing on the other side. So now I'm going to work a single crochet in each of the next 23 chains. And I just took out the stitch marker that we used to help us count. We don't need that anymore. So 23 single crochets across here. Here I've completed those 23 single crochet, and you could see here, so here's my first increase I marked, my point, the second increase, and then this long section. I'm going to remove the stitch marker that I used for counting. Don't need that for counting anymore.
And now I'm going to do 2 single crochets in the next one. 1, and I'm going to mark it with the blue stitch marker, my first one. And then I'm going to put another single crochet in the same stitch, same chain. Then I'm going to put a single crochet in each of the next 2 chains. So 1, 2, like so. Now I'm going to work another point. So I'm going to do single crochet, chain 1, mark it with my yellow stitch marker, and then put a single crochet right back in that same stitch, same chain. Now I'm going to put a single crochet in each of the next 2. 1, 2, and now I'm ready for another increase. So I'm going to put 1 right there, and another one, 2 single crochets in that same stitch, and I'm going to mark the second one with the stitch marker. And now I should have 15 chains left here, and I'm going to work a single crochet in each of them all the way to the end. And that'll be row 1 of cord A completed. So far, we've only worked single crochet and chains. And this is what your cord should look like so far. So we've taken that long chain and created this oval shape with a bend on either side of the points. And now we're going to fasten off. Cut about 6 to 8 inches from the end. Yarn over and pull through to knot the end of the cord. So now these stitch markers are going to help us see what we need to do for the second round or the second row of this cord. So you're going to put your slip knot on your hook, and we're going to find the beginning of the cord. So the beginning of the cord is the end that does not have any yarn tails, and it's also the shorter end before you get to the bends in the point. So this is the end of our cord with the long length here after our last bends and points. And it has yarn tails. So we don't want that. We want this end. And we're going to join with a single crochet right into that first stitch. So to do that, I just put my hook through that first stitch, yarn over, pull through the stitch, 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2. That's called join with a single crochet. And now that we have these stitch markers in here, we don't have to do any counting. So you can do this while watching TV. So we're going to single crochet across in each stitch, like so, until we get to that first stitch marker. And at the first stitch marker, we're going to put 2 stitches in there. So I remove it, and then I'm going to put 2 right in here. 1, and go back into that same stitch. And that just helps accentuate the curve that we started. Now we're going to head to our center stitch marker. Same thing, we'll just put single crochets in each one of those. And now this is marking that chain 1 space at the point. and we're going to put our hook into there, and we're going to do same thing we did before at the point. Single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, all in that same chain 1 space. And then I'm going to mark that chain 1 space again because we'll want to see that next row. Now I'm going to work single crochets across to the next stitch marker. And now I'm going to put 2 single crochets in this one. 1, 2. And now I just keep going across and do the same thing on the other side of the cord. So I'm going to work single crochets all the way across until I get to this first stitch marker. I'll put 2 in here, single crochets across to my yellow stitch marker, which is the chain 1 space, and then I'm going to do what I did before. Single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, mark the chain 1, single crochet across to my last stitch marker, 2 single crochets in there, and then single crochet across to the end. By using the stitch markers, we don't have to do any counting. Everything's all marked out for us. So I'll show you again when I get there. Single crochet to your next stitch marker. Alright, I've come to my next stitch marker. Take it out, put 2 stitches in that stitch. 1, go back into that same stitch, single crochet across to my next stitch marker. Here I am at my chain 1 space. Put my hook into the chain 1 space and then do single crochet, chain 1, single crochet all in there, and mark that chain 1 space again. Single crochet to my next chain, to my next stitch marker. Here's the stitch marker, and put 2 single crochets in there. 1, 2, and now I'm going to do single crochets until the end. And do as before, fasten off, cut about 6 inches out, yarn over, pull through so it's a nice knot. And this is what you should have so far for cord A. So I have my 2 points marked with my stitch marker at the chain 1 space, and I have nice, clean, tight single crochet stitches to create the oval shape. Now we're going to add the edging. I recommend adding the edging because it really helps the knot design to look its best. So I'm going to take a contrasting color and put the slip knot on my hook, and I'm going to begin at the beginning of the cord. Again, that's here where we have the shorter end next to the point, and we're going to work in the back loop only. So normally when we put our hook into a stitch, we put it under both loops like so. But I'm going to work into the back loop. So I put my hook down into the center of the stitch and just pick up that back loop. And we're going to work slip stitches around both sides. So I put my hook down into the center, yarn over, pull through the stitch and through the loop on my hook. And you want to do this nice and loosely so your cord still lays flat. And this gives a nice braided look along the edge. So I'm just putting my hook into the center of each stitch, yarn over, and pull through everything. So I'm going to keep going along until I get to that stitch marker. Now, what I do want to show you is that because we have this bend in the cord here, when we work along this other side, we're going to skip this stitch as well, and that'll just help this to bend nicely. So while we're up top here, I'm going to remove the stitch marker, and I'm going to replace it down in here into that bottom of the stitch there. That's right inside the bend or the point. And that'll remind me when I'm coming along the other side that I want to skip that. So here at the top, I'm going to put my hook into that back loop of the chain one space, yarn over, pull through everything to create my slip stitch, and then I'm just going to add a chain one. And that helps keep the point. And then I continue on working the slip stitches across, just like I did before, in each stitch. And at the next stitch marker, I'm going to do the same thing. And you could see how that chain one just helps accentuate the nice point. So go down along the cord and repeat the same thing, and then I'll show you what to do when you get to the end of the cord. Here I've come to the end of the cord, and now I'm ready to work along the other side. And so we don't have to fasten off, we can just work across this short side of the cord just to get to where we want to go. So chain one, put your hook into the side of that last single crochet and do another slip stitch. Chain one again, and you can put your hook into the side of the next one and slip stitch, and then chain one. And now we're ready to work along the other side. Same thing, I'm going to put my hook down through the center of the stitch. See, here's what we normally would do, put our hook under both loops, but I'm going to insert through the back loop only. And continue working a nice, even, loose, not too tight, slip stitch. And it really finishes off the cord and helps your Celtic knot pattern look its best. And I'm going to do that in each stitch along this edge, except where I moved those stitch markers. If you remember, the inside of the point, I'm going to skip that stitch, and I'm about to come up on it. I'll show you. So here we're coming up on, here's the point on the outside of the cord, and on the inside edge, I'm just going to skip that stitch. And I'll skip that one right there, remove the stitch marker. No, don't work in there, and go right to the next one. And I'll do the same thing when I get to the other stitch marker on the inside of the next point. And then I'll fasten off when I get to the end of the cord. I've come to the end of the other side of the cord, and I'm going to cut. I don't need to go across here because this is not going to show. And here we go. This is what your completed cord A will look like. So it looks like a small oval, just like that, with some points on either end. Cord A should be approximately 12 inches long and about 3/4 of an inch wide. So remember, you're going to make 2 of these, and next we'll work on cord B. For cord B, I put my slip knot on my hook, and I'm going to chain 89. And I'll do what I did before, where I mark every 20, so if I get interrupted or just have a brain freeze, I don't have to start all over. So now I've done 80 chains. I have 20, 40, 60, 80, and then I'll just do 9 more. And now I'm ready to work into the chain just like we did before. So here is the front of the chain, and I'm going to turn it over, and we're going to work in that back bump all the way down. And I'm going to skip the first chain and go into the second chain. And I'm going to single crochet in that chain and in the next. Now I'm going to do similar to what we did in the other cord. We're just making it a little bigger. So I'm going to put my increase here, so 2 single crochets in the next one. And I'm going to mark the first one with the stitch marker, and then go back in that same stitch and put another single crochet. Now I'm going to single crochet in each of the next 10 chains. And now I am going to work my point. So I'm going to do what I did before, single crochet, chain 1, mark that chain 1 with the stitch marker, and then single crochet right into that same chain again. Now I'm going to single crochet in the next 10 chains. So we have 8, 9, 10, and I'm going to remove my counting stitch marker, and now I'm going to put 2 single crochets in my next chain, 1 right here, and then another one in that same chain, and I will mark it with the stitch marker, the second one I mark. So far you can see I have the 2 bends in my cord and a point, because this is going to be an outer bigger cord for our Celtic knot. Now I'm going to work a single crochet in each of the next 21 chains. Still working in that back bar, back bump of the chain. I've completed the 21 single crochets, and now I'm ready to do another increase. So my next chain, I'm going to put 2 single crochets in there, and I'm going to mark the first one with the stitch marker, and then another one right in that same stitch. Now I'm going to single crochet in the next 10 chains. And now I'm going to work my next point. So I'm going to single crochet in the next chain, chain 1, mark the chain 1 with my stitch marker, single crochet in the next, in the same chain. So I did single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, all in the same place. Now single crochet in the next 10, remove my counting stitch marker. So 1, 10. And now put 2 single crochets in the next one. 1, 2, and I'm marking the second one with my stitch marker. And now I'm going to single crochet in the last length here of chain, and this should be about 19 stitches here. Just put a single crochet in each one. I've come to the end of the chain. I'm going to fasten off, cut about 6 inches off, yarn over and pull it tight. And so now this is what I have so far for cord B. So I have a bend in the cord where the blue stitch markers are and a point. And then I have the same thing on the other side. So it looks just like our other cord, but it's just a little bit bigger. So now we're going to do row 2, and we're going to start at the beginning of the cord, which is the cord without the yarn tails. And I'm going to put my slip knot on my hook, and I'm going to join with a single crochet like I did before in my very first stitch here. I'll show you how to do that again. I'm going to put my hook under both loops of the first stitch, yarn over, pull through the stitch, 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2. And I'm going to single crochet in each stitch across except when I come to my stitch markers. So the stitch markers here that are not at the point, I'm going to put 2 stitches there. 1, 2, and then when I get to the point, which is my yellow stitch marker, I'm going to do the same thing. Single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. The same thing that I did at all the other points of my cords. So this second row is just making our cord thicker, but we want to keep those points and bends in the cord so it really looks nice. So here's my chain 1 space. Remove the stitch marker for a minute. Put my hook into the chain 1 space. Single crochet, chain 1, single crochet in that same chain 1 space. And then I'm going to mark the chain 1 space again so I can find it easily when we add the edging. And that's all there is to it. So work across with single crochet to the next stitch marker that's not a point, and I'll put 2 stitches in there. And then when I get to the point, do single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. I've come to the end of the chain, of the cord, and I fasten off. And so at this point, before we've added the edging, your cord should be approximately 19 and a half inches long, somewhere around there. And this is what it would look like. So you have the bends and then the points here with a bend on either side. So you just have a larger oval than cord A. So now we're going to add the edging. Same thing, we're going to start at the beginning of the cord. So that's the side with the very short length here after our first bend. And we're going to work it the same way that we worked cord A's edging. So I put the contrasting color slip knot on my hook, and then I'm going to work into that back loop only. Put my hook right down into the center of the stitch, yarn over, pull through a stitch and the loop on my hook. Nice and even, loose slip stitches. And then when I get to the point that's marked with my stitch marker, I'm going to add a chain 1. So very simple. And we'll be skipping that stitch that's on the inside of the point, like we did for cord A. So here I am at the chain 1 space. Put a slip stitch in the chain 1 space, then chain 1, and then keep on going with my slip stitches. And just so I don't forget, I'll take that stitch marker out and mark the bottom or the inside of the point, so I know to skip that stitch when I make my way back around. And that's all there is to it to make cord B. I've come to the end of the cord, and now I can fasten off my edging color. And here we have our large cord B, and we're going to make 2 of these. So the width now with the edging is about 3/4 of an inch. And the length should be approximately 18 inches long. Let's see here. Yep, there we go, 18 inches. So you can kind of see what to expect. If you'd like this measurement, it's about 8 inches across. And for our small cord, our cord A, it's about 6.5 inches across. So you'll make 2 of each of these, and then we'll be ready to weave the Celtic knot. Here you can see I've completed my 4 cords. I have 2 cord A's and I have 2 cord B's. As you could see, these are the same and these are the same. I just made them with different colors. Now that we've finished all our cords, we can begin to weave the Celtic knot. So the first supply you'll need is a piece of cork board, and I like to get one that's about 1/4 inch thick, and one that is 12 inches by 12 inches would work great. You can have one as small as maybe 10 by 10 would work for this project. And I also like to put a piece of styrofoam about 1/2 inch underneath just to protect my work surface. Another thing that you could use would be a blocking board like this. This works great for weaving the knots. Then you'll also need some straight sewing pins, and you'll need to print out a color copy of the Celtic knot diagram that is found within the pattern for this project. Now, if you are a left-hander, you will use the same exact diagram, except it will be flipped and it will look like this. And that also is included with the instructions. So just make sure you print out the one that you need for whether you're right or left-handed. And what we like to do is place the diagram on your cork board, and using a couple pins, pin it in place. And then before we start weaving, we like to first look and see what's happening here on our diagram. So if you look, I have made 2 cords this pink, dark pink color. And then I have a cord that is light pink, and then a cord that is gray. There are some other things here. We have an asterisk and a circle, and we have a triangle and a square, and then we have some arrows. So those show us how we're going to weave the knot. Okay, so what you can do is you can take your finger or your crochet hook, and you want to start here at the asterisk and follow the arrow, and this is where we're going to place our first cord A. Then we're going to place the next cord, cord B, at the black circle, and you're going to follow that large cord around. So we have one inside the other. Next, we're going to start at the black square, and we'll put down the other cord B, like so. And then lastly, we'll start at the black triangle and put a cord down, weaving over, under, see the path? Following the gray path. Okay, so let's get started. So we're going to work on this darker pink path with cord A, and here's the beginning of cord A, and we're going to line that up with the asterisk, place it right here, and we'll follow the arrow and pin at the points, and we're just following this oval of cord A. And there we go. So before we move on, I want to sew these two cord ends together. It will make things so much easier later. So I'm just going to take my yarn needle and the yarn tails, and I'll put my needle through the other side of the cord, and then back down through the first side of the cord, and just whip stitch these together like so. And what's nice to do just to make sure it's secure is take two of these yarn tails and tie a double knot. Okay, and we might want to use these yarn tails for something a little bit later. So I'll just move these pins so everything stays in place here. Okay, so we have our first cord. Now I'm going to work in this other dark pink spot, dark pink path, starting at the black circle. And I'm using cord B. And I just follow it around, lining up the curves. If you need to pull your cord out a little bit, just so it stretches to the size you need. And it's good to pin at all the bends and the points. And we go across and we meet up with the beginning of the cord again, just like we did with the first one. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to sew these cord ends together using a yarn tail and my yarn needle. And go up and down through the cord ends. Make sure it's nice and tight. like so. And I'll tie the yarn tails into a nice double knot. And again, I want to make sure I pin at all of the bends. So this is what we have so far, are a cord A and a cord B, and we haven't had to do any real weaving yet. We've just placed them down on the diagram. So now we're going to work this light pink cord. And I made my cords to match this diagram just to help you see how to weave it better. So here's that black square, and I'm going to tuck the ends under there and pin the end in place. Just get those yarn tails out of the way, like that. And follow the diagram, matching up the points. Now when we look at the diagram, we're going to peek here under the cords. So here's a tip for you. If it's hard to see where the cords need to go, you can always print out a second diagram, and then you can look to the side and see that we're going to go over, then under, over, under, and then around, and then over, under, under. So that's a little tip for you. So if you look here, we're going to go over, then the light pink is going to go under the dark pink, then we're going to go over, and then under. And pin it in place like so, and match up the points. And pin at the bends. So now we're going to work on this side of that light pink path, and we're going to go over here, then under, over, and then we'll meet up with an under right where we began. I'll pull out my cord a little so it stretches nicely. So over, then under, over, and under to end up right where we began. And the two cord ends will meet up right here underneath the other cord. And again, I can pin, and it should pin here too. Pin at the beginning and the end. So now I just have one more cord to weave, and that I made as a gray cord. So the last cord, remember, the beginning of the cord is the shorter end after the point. The end is the longer end after the point. And we're going to start right here on the diagram at the black triangle, and we'll put the cord end under that. And pin it in place. And we're going to follow this gray path. You see it goes around kind of in an oval shape right in the middle. and we're going to go over first and line up the next point right here on the gray path. Now we're going to peek, and we see that we go under, then we're going to go over, under, over. Stretch it out a little and meet up with the next point down here. And now we just have a little bit more to do here. I'm going to put these yarn tails underneath so we can see nicely. Okay, so we have this gray path right here, and it's going to go under, over, and then meet up under, so it's hidden under the other cord. So we go under here, and then over and under, starting right where, matching up right where we began. Alright, so these yarn tails will come in handy later, so we don't want to weave them in just yet. I'll show you about that. Alright, so there we go. That's our knot. It's not too difficult to weave. As you saw, the dark pink, we just lay those two inside each other, and we only have to weave the second cord A and cord B. Now that we've completed it, we're going to take the pins out and pin across on those second cord A and cord B to keep the ends of the cord in place. So go across on there and across on this one right here. And then we can take out all the other pins. If you'd like, you can pin over here on the side. That just helps keep it shape. So if you want to do that, you might want to do that. And I'm pinning across. Alright, so there we have our completed knot. And then, like I said, we're going to sew those two cord ends together. So we already sewed the dark pink, and now we're going to sew the other two. So you can remove the knot from the board. And now I'm going to turn it over, and on the back I'm going to sew the light pink together using the yarn tails like I did with the dark pink cords. And I just pick up one end of the cord and the other end and sew them together. And at this point, now that I've got this all set, I'm going to remove the pins just for a minute so I can make sure that my cord ends are free to be sewn together. And like I did before, tie a couple of the yarn tails in a double knot. And I'll do that also with the gray cord. So here is my finished knot, and it'll be approximately 6.5 inches across. And we're going to add 3 rounds of stitches around this knot. Now I decided to add the stitches with some gray, but for this demonstration I'm going to use the dark pink again. Before we add the edging, I recommend taking your stitch marker and marking the chain 1 space at each corner. This way it'll be easier to find later on. You could see it easily. It's just right there at the corner. And this is for each of the points of the larger cords, cord B. And this will make it easier when we add our stitches around. Now before we begin working in the edge of this knot, I want to show you where we're going to work. So we have our slip stitch edging here along all the cords, and I don't want to disrupt this pretty line of stitching. So we're going to work in the loops behind this slip stitch edging. So if you look here, you see that there is this loop here. And so whatever main color of the cord you have, you will see these main color loops between the color of your slip stitch edging. So my slip stitch edging is the light pink, and it creates this line of stitches or loops right here and line of loops right there with the main cord color in between. So I'm going to insert my hook through that loop, and then I'm also going to go through the second row of loops. And that way, by working in 2 loops on the back side of the cord, my project won't separate and have big gaps in it. So we're going to start at one of the corners where you've marked the chain 1 spaces, and we're going to work behind it, and we're going to join with a half double crochet. This is also called a standing half double. So we have our slip knot on our hook, and we yarn over, and I'm going to insert my hook through 2 loops here on the back of the cord behind that chain 1 space. And then I'm going to yarn over, pull through the stitch, 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. That's a standing or half double or join with half double. And now in that same space, I'm going to chain 1 and work a half double again. And now I'm going to work along this edge here for 15 stitches, and I'm going to do half double. So I just want to find that next stitch right there on the back side. See this one right here, and then I'll pick another loop. It doesn't have to be the light pink loop. It could be any loop on the back that's close. And so I'm going to do 15 like that. Work my way down the side of the cord, trying to work through 2 loops. If you want, you could just work through 1 loop, but I found that it's just much more secure. So, okay, so we're going to do a total, after we did the half double, chain 1 half double in the corner, we're going to do 15 across. And by working behind that slip stitch edging, see how it stays intact and looks really nice, and we don't lose the look of our knot, but we can build up working behind it to create more stitches and more width. Here you can see the 15 half double crochets that I put along this side from the corner to here. And now I'm going to work a double crochet in the next stitch. Same thing, working behind the slip stitch edging. And that double crochet should be right where those two cords meet, and it's a little bit taller right down here because you have a little bit of a valley. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to count back 15 stitches from this chain one space marked at the corner. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 right here. Okay, so I'm going to mark that with my stitch marker. And that's where I'm going to begin the next set of 15 half double crochets. So I'm going to work behind this stitch and work all the way across, and I should fit 15 half double crochets before I get to the corner. Now just for ease and quickness, I'm just working into one of those loops in the back for now, but I recommend, like I said, working in more than one. So I'm doing 15 half double crochets across right here. So I've completed that next set of 15 half double crochets, and now here behind that chain one space at the corner, I'm going to work half double crochet, chain one, and then another half double crochet. I'm trying to pick up 2 loops back here. Alright, so that's what I'm going to do along each edge. So I'm going to now repeat that. Work 15 half double, then 1 double, then count back 15 from this next corner and work 15 half double crochet here, and then in the corner half double, chain one, half double, and repeat that all the way around till I get to that first half double crochet, and I'll put a slip stitch in that. I've gone all the way around with my stitches, and here is my first half double crochet of the round, and I'm going to put my hook into the top of that stitch and slip stitch everything together. So I should have 33 stitches along each side with a chain one at the corner. So now we're going to work round 2, and I'm going to slip stitch into the chain one space here at the corner, and I'm going to chain 3, which counts as the first half double and the chain one space, and I'm going to put another half double into that chain one space, and then I'm going to half double in each stitch across. Make sure you don't miss that very first one right here next to the chain one space, and I'm going to work half double crochet in each stitch across until the next chain one space at the corner. And if you'd like, you can mark your chain one spaces with a stitch marker to help you find them for the next round. And that's all there is to it for this round. Half double crochet in each stitch across, and so there'll be 35 stitches across each side with a chain one at the corners. I've gone all the way around with my half double crochets, and I'm back here at the beginning, and here's my starting chain 3, and I'm going to slip stitch into the second chain to finish the round. like I said, you should have 35 stitches along each side with a chain 1 in between. So now you have two options. You can fasten off and join a different color that you're going to make for the next border stitches that Bonnie will show you in her video, or you can continue on with the same color. So I'll show you the two versions. This is my version with the pink, and I worked in the gray around the Celtic knot for 3 rounds. But if you look carefully at Bonnie's version in the blue, you'll see that she worked around the Celtic knot with the white for only 2 rounds, and then this 3rd round that I'm about to do now, she put into the navy, and then she started with her lower ridge stitch and her arrow stitches. So it's up to you. You decide which you would like. I'm going to continue with this dark pink for my last round of this Celtic knot section. And this last round is very similar to the one we just did. It's basically the same thing. I'm going to slip stitch into that next chain 1 space at the corner. Then I'm going to chain 3, counts as my first half double and my first chain 1 space. And then I'll put a half double crochet in that same chain 1 space. And then, being careful that I don't miss that first stitch here, I'm going to put a half double crochet in each stitch across to the next chain 1 space. And then at the corner, I'll do half double, chain 1, half double. So it's the same thing as the row before, and it just gives us this nice band of a border around the Celtic knot to really help frame it. And after this is finished, you should have 37 stitches along each side with a chain 1 in between. And a little side note, I think you might find it helpful to put a stitch marker in each of the chain 1 spaces at the corner, because this will help you when you continue on with this blanket and these stitches for the section that Bonnie will be teaching you. So I'm going to mark all of my corners so they're easy to find for the next step in this project. I've completed all of my half double crochets around, and now I'm at my starting chain 3, and I'm going to insert my hook into the second chain, yarn over, pull through everything for a slip stitch, and that is my Celtic Knot Square complete. And just so you know, your square should be approximately 8 inches across at this point. So there are just a couple things we want to do to make it look its best. So here's what it would look like so far. Now, as you see here, these things are not attached. So that's what we want to use these yarn tails for, and our yarn needle. On the wrong side, we can sew all these crossings down. And what we want to do is we want to sew these corners to the inside. So this point right here, we want to sew to this point and so forth. All those inside points we're going to secure. And I'll show you how to do that. So I'm just going to use one of these yarn tails here. And I'll put it on my yarn needle. And I'll work my way through the cord, making sure that I'm working on the back side of the stitches so it doesn't show on the right side of the cord. And I'll work my way here to the point. And of course you want to use the matching yarn for this. And I'm going to pick up a couple loops on this side right here and then work in the loops on the back over here, like so. And just kind of do what I did with the cord ends, where I just go up and down through both sections to secure the point right to there. And if you'd like, you can also secure right here and right here. And that helps it stay in place. So I do that all the way around at each point. After you've taken the time to sew these points to the inside of the larger points, I also recommend sewing these crossings. See how things are kind of loose here? And this will help your project to stay nice and solid, keep the Celtic knot pattern looking its best. So I just use these yarn tails because we have to weave them in anyway. So I take my yarn needle and put one of the yarn tails on it, like so, and then pick up a loop on the adjacent cord and on the current cord, just like this. And I'm just securing them. 2 or 3 stitches is good for that. And then I'll work across the cord to the other side and do the same thing on the other side, like this. Go through a stitch, and you'll want to do that on all the crossings. And when you have finished with that yarn tail, then I'm going to just weave it in. And I like, if it's a dark pink yarn tail, then I'll weave in the back of a dark pink cord, like so, and go one way for an inch. I'll go the other way for an inch, pull it through, and then cut off the excess. And then on the correct side, now this isn't gonna go anywhere. Nice and secure. Now another thing that you can do is when we add the square behind this, we can also sew some spots around here. We can sew maybe around the center and then a few spots around here to secure it to the backing square, and we could also secure the crossings at that same time if you want to combine steps so it goes quicker. And then the last thing we want to do is we're going to create a backing square because there are a good amount of holes here. So if you'd like to have this be solid, we're going to create a single crochet square that we're going to sew to the back of this to make it fully solid. Another option is you can sew on a piece of fleece on the back with some sewing thread, but I'll show you how we do it with a crochet hook, and I'm going to choose the gray color so when it's behind it, it really makes these pink colors pop. So to make our backing square, I'm just going to chain a length that's approximately the same length as my square width. So I chain 35 because I know there are 35 stitches along each side. So maybe I'll do, actually there are 37 stitches along each side. So there, I think that'd be good. I'll chain 37 and then I'll skip the first stitch, first chain, skip the first chain and work a single crochet in each chain across, and then chain 1, turn, and work single crochet in each stitch across. And I'll repeat that, a single crochet in each stitch, until my square matches my Celtic Knot Square. So very simple. I mean, you could use whatever stitch you want, but a single crochet is nice and tight, and you won't have any holes or gaps. And it's just a nice finishing touch to your Celtic Knot Square center. So I'll just test and see how long this is. Yep. Just right. And I'll probably add a border around so it's nice and clean. So I'll keep that. I'll keep going, chain 1, single crochet in each stitch until I have this whole back side covered. Here is my backing square. I've done about 39 rows, and here's a little tip for you. To figure out if you've made a square, you just fold your piece on the diagonal, and if both sides meet up, then you have a square. So I just kept working my single crochet rows and checking, and sometimes when I did it, you know, I had a bunch left to do, and then there we go, I have the square. And you'll see here it fits nicely on the back of my Celtic knot, but what I'm going to do just to make it look even better is I'm going to work a single crochet edging around it. You don't have to do that, this is optional. So once I've gotten to the end of my square, my row, chain 1, and then I'm just going to work single crochets in the end of each row. And when I get to the corner, just chain 1. I could put an extra single crochet in at the corner just so it doesn't curl. And this just gives it a nice finishing touch on the back side of your project. Okay, so once I've gone all around every side, I'll fasten off and we'll sew it to our blanket. Here you can see my completed blanket, and this is the wrong side, and I'm going to sew on the backing square right here in the center so there aren't any of these big holes in the blanket. You can choose to do this after you finish the square, or you can do this like I am after I finish the whole blanket. And I fastened off with a nice long tail of matching yarn. Put that on my yarn needle. And you can use some pins to keep everything in place if you like. I think I'm going to do that. This is just so it doesn't shift, and I'm going to be sewing it just in front of the dark pink. So I want to make sure, since I'm using the gray yarn, I want to sew it to the gray section. If your color is thicker here, where you chose to do that alternative where you did the last round in the darker color, then you probably want to sew your square on with the yarn that matches where the square lines up with. So by pinning it in place, I know it's nice and flat, and I'm going to be able to sew it on evenly, like so. And I'm just going to do a whip stitch. I'm just going to pick up a loop on the back of the square and then go through the edge of the square. and I'll work my way around. So, like I said, I'm going to try to grab one of the gray loops. And you can go in every other stitch. I don't think you have to go in every stitch for this. And that's all there is to it. And it's going to be nice and secured onto the back of my blanket. And then again, if I like, I could use washable fabric glue, or I could sew the knot down to the back. Okay, so I'll go all the way around and weave in this end.
So there you have it. That's how you make the Celtic Knot Square as part of the Celtic Knot Baby Blanket. I hope you enjoyed making it, and if you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments below, and I'd be happy to help. Happy crocheting!